All right, folks, Mr. Hansen here. I just want to walk you through the process of creating a CAD model for your popsicle stick bridge crane. I guess we're doing cranes in this project. Now I've got a pretty bad example. Here's my bad crane assembly that I built pretty quickly. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 popsicle sticks, just kind of glued end to end. And this is probably the worst possible design that you can make. But our goal here, everyone's going to create a CAD model for their final popsicle crane design. You're either going to use blueprints for that crane design, or you guys are going to take that crane design and use some simulation software to identify the weak points of your crane. So two different tasks based on whether you're in my virtual class or on campus class. And this is an example of the strain analysis software that I'll get you guys using. It's actually pretty easy to use, but you can see, right off the bat where the weak points of this very bad crane design are. So let's take a look. You should have some rough sketches down in your notebook. So here's my, sort of rough sketch looking at an idea. It's not super pretty, but that's why I got CAD tools to make a nice looking design. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 popsicle sticks along the bottom, which makes this, I believe, 18 inches in total length. And I'm going to do kind of what's called a Warren truss. It's just equilateral triangles for the truss. And then I'll have to figure out what to do at the end because that's going to be kind of messy. And yeah, rough sketch. Let's refine this using our CAD software. And so what I've created, and you can find this all in the sample crane folder in the crane tower Onshape document. You're welcome to take a look at this stuff. You should have a link to that Onshape document in the design brief. But here I have my better crane assembly. Nothing in here yet. But when you create your own assembly, you can go to Insert. And if you go over to the Assemblies tab, you should be able to see the base assembly. I've already got this base put together and assembled, and it represents pretty accurately the actual physical base that we are using to test out the physical cranes. Before I do anything, though, I'm going to try to center this with respect to that origin point. So I'm going to click this bottom, click that little middle circle, snap it to the middle of that bottom rectangle, right click, and I want to move that to the origin. And then I'm going to right click that. I'm going to fix that in place so it doesn't move around. So now the standard design here, like I've got a truss structure, and this is going to have two sides made up of those triangular trusses. I could go ahead and, insert my popsicle stick parts. And, what I've done is I've created a part studio that's got my different parts that I may want to use already designed. So when I'm making my crane, I can just, click and drag those parts into my assembly. Like I could insert my popsicle sticks and I can start building my truss here, but both sides of the design I'm looking at is going to be essentially the same. So I'm going to be better off if I create what's called a sub-assembly for the side of my crane and use that inside my actual crane assembly. So I've got another assembly tab open here called Better Truss, and I'm going to build the truss structure for my crane here, and then I'm going to use that in my other assembly. So this is a process called sub-assemblies, and it's super handy. So let me start with the materials. I'm going to use my full craft stick. I've got a end trimmed and a half stick version of this, but I think all I need here is just my half stick here, or my full stick. Again, I'm going to center this guy with respect to the origin. So I'm working from the center of my assembly, so I'll snap that, move to origin. And I'd like this to be oriented so that this side is aligned with Z, and let me flip that around actually, anti-Z, there we go. And that way I'm gonna build my popsicle stick structure so that I've got the strong dimension of the popsicle stick supporting the weight. Now I wanna create 4 of these guys. And you could, copy, paste, try to move them close to each other. But the easiest way to create copies of this is to go up to the pattern tool. So I'm going to assemble a linear pattern. And the direction that I want to duplicate this is along the bottom. These craft sticks are 4.5 inches. So if I make them 4.5 end to end, they should be right next to each other. And I want 4 of these popsicle sticks. So that's going to create 4 copies of my popsicle sticks duplicated along this line. Alrighty. We are making progress. So the next step, I want to go ahead and create my triangular truss structures. So these guys, they're not necessarily fastened to each other, but I want to keep them with the same like relative location to each other because I'm going to add stuff to make this stronger. So I'm going to go ahead and do what's called a group. So these pieces stay together. So let me group these together. And then you'll see a group over here in the mate features. And let me insert a couple more popsicle sticks. So I'm going to make my trusses out of full craft sticks. You may have a more efficient design if you look at like using half craft sticks or shortening it with your trusses. But I'm going to bond these guys to the center side of what is going to be the horizontal rail of my truss. So, and I'm actually going to use what's called a revolute mate. Now they are going to be fastened permanently to the sides, but this revolute mate is going to let me adjust things until I've got the correct angles that I want. Otherwise, it's kind of tricky to space these correctly. So let me rotate these around so they're sticking straight up, and I'm going to adjust that angle to match. Ooh, that's not quite right. What I need once I've got them all placed. There we go. Again, I'm going to need that guy to be on the outside of my rail because that's where, in practice would be glued. So let me do. You know what? Let me go ahead and pattern these. Again, I want these to be 4.5 inches apart. I need 3 copies of them. Nope. 4 copies of them. Cool. All right. And now these are. Let me fix that. Yeah. So these do have a revolute mate. I hope you know what? That's not going to work. That's not going to work. I got to do a separate revolute mate for all of them. Oh, you know what I could do? Let's try replicating these. So let's match faces and parts. And we want to match this one, that one, and that one. All right, cool. All right, now we're talking. Oh, you know what? I didn't fix this bottom piece. Let's start there. All right, so now I kind of want to, not that one. I want to fix this one. All right, cool. There we go. Now I want to kind of orient these so that I've got my triangular structure. And you know what? We're going to do kind of a half triangle there at the end. All right, so you see going through this, there's space between there because I got the sides of my triangle on either side of the center rail. So what I'm going to do is take this group here. Let's see if it lets me do a linear pattern with these guys. Let me shift that up. All right, so I could go through and do some of the geometry and figure out the exact height that those need to be. I don't know, let's make them 3 inches and we can move them if we need to. Now, yeah, those. Oh, you know what? Let's try that again. It was just a Control C, Control V to just copy those, and I'm going to move them into the right place. So let me actually group these guys together so they move as one entity. And I need to. Okay, I missed one of those guys. Let's try that again. Get in there, yo. All right, cool. And now I'm going to try and position this in between these pieces here. And so let's see. I think I want to mate that mate connector with the inside edge there. And let's actually make that a revolute mate so I can adjust this. And let's do something similar over here. Oop. All right. Cool. Let's I'm gonna do another revolute mate to mate the endpoints here to this guy. And the rest of this is going to be going through and doing kind of the same thing with the rest of these to make sure they're attached. So let me, go through part of this. Anyways, I'll let you do that. So that is going to be the basics of my truss. I probably need to add another element over here and add a support here. But let me go ahead and show you how to do the assembly in your main assembly. So this is one side of my popsicle stick bridge. And so now that I've got that the assembly in its own, the truss in its own assembly, I can go to insert, go over to assemblies, and you should see that better truss assembly. And I'm actually, like, you got all these circular mate connectors. I'm going to select a mate connector and hide them so they get out of my face. They're kind of obscuring my view a little bit. Cool. So we have now a truss assembly. And I can actually copy paste that. or I can go up to insert, go to assemblies and click and insert the other side of my truss structure. Let me hide those mates as well. Hide all mate connectors. There we go. All right, so now we're ready to start kind of assembling our crane design. And so I would need to mate these pieces on the top, and then I'm going to have to add some reinforcement to keep this thing positioned where it needs to be. So let me start with a fastened mate. I'm going to try and fasten the bottom, the mid. Yeah. I'm going to try and fasten the midpoint of this outside edge. There we go. With the midpoint of my tower. And so that should be resting on top of that tower. Let me do the same thing over here. And you could also do like a linear pattern, or you could do a replicate to try and do this. But let me try to get the same thing over here. I want, oh, you know what? That's flipped around. I need the mirror image of that. Do I? No, I don't. Let's do the, let me try to get the inside edge of this bottom face, getting that midpoint and attaching that to the top of my tower assembly face. Ooh, excuse me. Cool. So now I've got something that's looking very much like a crane. We obviously got some stuff that we need to add to this, so I'm going to have some kind of bracing on the back that keeps it attached to this center pillar. And you may want to use, you know, we got that 36 inches of wood. I'm also going to need to add something called sway bracing. And so I need something in between these two guys that will keep my trusses from collapsing. And so let me go to insert. Let me go to my materials part studio and get a half stick. And let me just mate this. Rotate it. And now if I were, you know, going to try and make this look as nice as possible, I'd probably actually get that measurement and calculate that to what it actually needs to be. Maybe I want to fit it, you know, in between the, you know, like the vertical faces. But, you know, it's going to be something that's going to brace those two trusses. And if I were going to go on and, like, you know, continue adding details to this, you know, I would want to probably add some support where the weight can hang. So, you know, for example, one thing I created, if I go to insert materials, I've got a little thing that represents my weight. Let me get another half stick. Let's see where we want to put this. Yeah, for example, maybe I want to make that. Let's rotate that around so it's shared between those two pieces. And that would be the structure that my weight's going to hang from. Now you can also, yeah, and let me mate this weight to that. If you're in my on-campus class, you won't need this little weight object because we're going to actually build these and attach weights to them. But if you are in my digital class, this weight object is essentially where we're going to use to simulate the force being applied to our crane. So there I've got at least the start of a popsicle stick crane. It's got some features that need to be added, but that's, kind of the general big ideas. We'll go ahead and delete that for assembling a popsicle stick crane. So I'm going to let you guys continue working on that. There's one more nifty feature that's going to be helpful here, and that is the bill of materials. So if you go over here to the right side of the screen, you'll see a BOM table. And so you can insert what's called the bill of materials. Let me add a column for name. I don't need part number. Let me remove the part number column. The name's pretty descriptive. But now I can get a really quick count of the resources that I'm using in this design. And so I can see with the trusses that I've got here, I've got that one extra one. Let me delete that. There we go. I've got 30 full popsicle sticks used in this particular truss structure. And so that's a really easy way to see if you got enough materials to build this design is looking at this bill of materials. So I got 30 full sticks, 2 half sticks. And of course, this design is not using any of the 36-inch, 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch wood dowel. So easy way to check and see if you are meeting your criteria for this design. Now, there's obviously a lot of things I need to do with those 10 popsicle sticks to make this a good design, but this should at least get you started and give you a way to compare how much resources you're using in your different designs. So check it out, see what you guys can build.